Next, we turned to the Integrity Chamber investigation into the issuance of bus and taxi licenses by the Ministry of TIAT during the year 2023. These investigations were prompted by media reports, public complaints, and questions raised in Parliament. It aimed to determine whether the ministry adhered to the applicable legal and regulatory framework in issuing public transportation licenses. The investigation also went in depth and interviewed and documented reviews involving key departments: the Department of Economic Licenses, DEL, the Policy Department, ETT, the Inspectorate Economic and Transportation Affairs, IETA, and the Receiver's Office. The Integrity Chamber uncovered serious instances of non-compliance throughout the license process, findings that for the most aligned with the SOA Bay report but go even more in depth. So the core findings are as follows. First one, violation of moratorium. Licenses was granted while 2014 moratorium was still in effect. The minister announced the issuance license before the updated 2023 policy was officially published. Second one, unlawful issuance and amendment of licenses. Applicants were accepted before and after public deadlines without explanation, and many ministry staff and department heads were unaware of these decisions. Third, lack of internal control. There were no proper documentation, tracking, or verification process. Applications were often incomplete, yet licenses were issued. Some licenses was issued without numbers, issue date, or recorded approvals. Fourth, bypassing established procedures. So members of the Ministry of the Cabinet submitted application and gave instructions to staff bypassing standard protocol. Also, a single advisor who also acted as department head handled every step, eliminating checks and balances within the ministry. Fifth, absence of a legal advisory committee. The law requires a public transportation committee to advise the license issuance, and this committee has not been in existence since 2009, and its task has not been legally reassigned, creating a gap in oversight. Political influence and timing. According to the report, the changes were made just months before the January 2024 election, raising concern of political motivation and vote buying. Here are the breaches identified in the investigation of the Integrity Chamber report. Non-compliance with both the 2014 and their own 2023 memorandum policy, disregard for the national ordinance and public transportation, issuing licenses with incomplete or inconsistent documentation, absence of justification or advisory notes for the ministry's decision, failure to revoke expired or unused licenses, and lack of transparency, process clarity, and digital centralized record keeping. The Integrity Chamber also gave us some recommendations, and here are some to name a few. Review and amend the legislation framework, clarify procedures, roles, and responsibilities to reestablish or legally replace the Public Transportation Committee, document standard procedures, create and enforce clear written guidelines for application process, include document checklists, approvals, steps, and accountability measures, training for staff and management, conduct regular integrity and ethics workshop for all stakeholders. And then also they're saying strengthen internal communication, improve collaboration between departments, and promote transparency. And they're also saying regulate ministerial discretion, so establish formal guidelines for how discretionary powers are used and ensure decisions are based on advice, data, and public interest, not political gain. And lastly, establish a digital licensing system to ensure a secure, verifiable, and tamper-proof process for applications and record keeping. The Integrity Chamber concluded that the then Ministry of TIAT did not comply with legal procedures in issuing public transportation licenses in 2023. The findings raises serious concerns about governance, political influence, and administrative integrity. So what's next? I'm sure many of you have questions, particularly about the legal implications of licenses issued during 2023. And while we're still reviewing the legal impact, one thing is clear. Based on the findings and the recommendations from both the SOA Bay report and the Integrity Chamber, the ministry will be moving forward with a comprehensive overhaul of the public transportation licensing process. Now that we are aware of what has transpired, we cannot unsee it, and it has our full and unwavering attention. So what are the immediate next steps? For starters, revocation of non-compliance licenses. Licenses that has not complied with existing regulation and the confirmation process are subject to revocation. So, however, consideration is being made to possibly exempt senior operations, particularly those between 60 and 65 and above, but the exact age threshold and the conditions for exemptions are still under review. Stakeholder engagement. Once the revised draft policy is finalized, the ministry will re-engage with key stakeholders, and including the Taxi and Bus Association, to present and review and discuss the proposed changes before officially implementing it. And lastly, once the draft amendments are finalized, approved, and agreed upon with stakeholders, the ministry will formally present the revised policy to Parliament. This step ensures public consideration, transparency, and broad understanding of the upcoming regulatory changes. Also, as part of the ministry's ongoing effort to strengthen transparency, accountability, and fairness in the licensing process, draft amendments are being finalized, and several critical reforms areas are under active review. So these include these areas. So these are the areas we have been focusing on. Issuance of licenses. So future measures will include stricter issuance and conditions and clear procedural guidance to prevent any licenses action before a policy is officially adopted. Public transportation. So the absence of this committee is a major compliance gap. So the ministry is considering either reinstating it or forming a new entity by creating an independent transportation authority with a mandate to oversee licenses, ensure transparency, and reduce political influence. A new application process is also being developed with a mandatory checklist, stronger internal compliance checks, comprehensive staff retraining, a digital tracking system for applications, a status and timeline, and mandatory training for the new and existing license.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXM, yeah. Your social and health insurances.
24/7 TV programming on www.stmartinmediacenter.com, SXM Daily News, PBS NewsHour, Now You Know, Com programs, documentary, entertainment, sports events, Saturday children's hours, religion programs, and movies. Click on SXM TV broadcast to see your favorite programs.
before the storm, we inform them, hey, there's something happening. A hurricane is coming our way. Be prepared. We might need to use you guys, right? That's before the storm. Now, the disaster happened, category 5, 4. Something happened, the people need to leave. So we'll inform them. Every day, actually, we see the judge of first instance, because remember, when it comes to evacuating, you're going to make a decision, a parent, if it's going to be a temporary solution or if it's going to be something more than, let's say, 3 months. So now, if it's something like maybe a week or 2, you don't know what's happening, you can make a decision and check and travel, and with your consent or with the father consent, depends who has custody. That is maybe a more smoother process. You do not really need the court of guardianship to go court for you. However, if you need to change, suspend your parental authority, and then somebody else need to become the legal guardian, that's when you have to have a conversation with us prior to leaving. And every morning during that time, we see the judge of first instance. So they automatically will suspend your parental authority, give the person, the aunt, the uncle, whoever receiving that child, legal custody, legal guardianship of that child, and then you receive a court decree. Most of the time in that court decree, that measure is valid between 3 to 6 months. And in that court decree, it automatically indicates that automatically after that date, your parental right will be reinstated. So that's something that's not really come back to the court of guardianship. So that is when it comes to the inter-island protocol. Also, what we would do is monitor. So we call in and check, say, hey, we have 5 children going Curacao. They go in Buena Vista, they go in Punda, they go in Arriba. Wherever they're going, we give you exactly the location, the address, phone number. So now the social worker at, let's say, Curacao would now check in with those minors to see how they're doing, how they're feeling, how they're adjusting. So then they continue to follow up, make sure the social, emotional part of that child is fine. Because maybe indeed the child was okay leaving, but maybe after a week the child's not adjusting properly and rather come back home. Because what you do not want to do is create another trauma. They already seen one, and now I don't have a mother, don't have a father. So now this aunt, I thought she was nice, but living with her is a different story. So that is when we're talking about the check-in. So they will continue monitoring that child to see if the child adjusted well or not. Okay, so that's when it comes to the inter-island protocol. And if the child doesn't feel well, then we have a conversation with the parents, say, hey, your child is going through this, how you feel like taking back the child. Because guess what? It's not only your child going through this process with the trauma, because there's so many kids are still on the island with their parents. So maybe it would be best interest if the child return home. So that would be a conversation, but ultimately the parent would have to make that decision.
We've been talking about child protection before, during, after a disaster. And we chose the title for this slide, Protecting Your Child from Themselves, because that is a very important part of child protection, actually. I'm the senior youth probation officer. That means that normally from a day-to-day basis, under normal circumstances, I am the other discipline of the Court of Guardianship, where child protection, child safety is the social worker's responsibility. My responsibility is to rehabilitate the minors who get in contact with the law. So basically, minors that make mistakes during normal circumstances. However, a disaster, in particular on St. Martin, is usually in the form of a hurricane, is an extraordinary situation. And it's not only the minors who usually get in problems with the law, who have problems with rules and directives, who have a problem with, for instance, the curfews and the directives given nationally. So, in general, the Youth Probation Office has MOUs and agreements with the different justice stakeholders. So what does that mean? That means that every single morning or in the 72 hours in anticipation of a disaster, I have regular meetings with the prosecutor office, the police office, and other justice stakeholders. And what do we discuss? We discuss the things that matter when it comes to minors in these situations, but also the parental responsibilities. And that is actually why I want to focus on in the context of what the Court of Guardianship does. Whereabouts is the first point that I pointed out. The first image shows it. You want to know where your children are. Of course, during the disaster, during the hurricane, you would hope that your children are at home. And generally speaking, that is the easiest time probably to find them at home, because while the storm is going on, they will seek safety. But the hours leading up to the storm and the hours after the storm is usually when all the mischief happens. Of course, it's the child that does it, it's the minor that does it, the youngster, because usually you're talking then more in the age group of 10 to 18, if you take it very broadly, 12 to 18, most likely it's more a teenager thing. But the parents are the ones who are in the end responsible for every child that is a minor. So it's a very important thing to have good communication with your child. It's also almost going to give a parental course here, but if you don't have an established communication pattern with your children in which you explain them in a calm manner what the responsibilities are that you expect of them, what your responsibilities are, but also what the ramifications and what the cause and effect of every choice that they make and how that will reflect on you, especially in a situation with a disaster, the financial ramifications. If you don't explain it to them, they cannot take it into account. Because the next thing is looting. Looting never happens cleanly. Looting comes with damages. Looting comes with theft, and looting comes with a price tag. And the price tag for any minor under the age of 18 will fall on the parents. So just imagine you already having to deal with maybe the stress of not working, the stress of damages to your home, to your car, other family members who you feel you care for, and now you have the added cost of store windows, appliances or electronics missing, clothing missing, and it will fall on you. Hence, the third picture is that you will find yourself at the prosecutor office, you will find yourself by the police having to basically account for the behavior of your child. And that's why it's so important it's easy when current is still on and you can entertain your child. The parenting really starts when everything starts to fail and all normality is out the door and your child will want to leave. And that is not only the ones that are always pointed at as the difficult children or the children with challenging behavior. It's a normal thing for a child to get bored. It's also a normal thing for a child to be scared and to find other ways to distract itself. But it definitely gets scary when they start to bundle out of your sight amongst each other and they start to do other things. That's why the joint partners within the justice chain have swift justice, which is basically in Dutch called snelrecht, which means that when a child is found breaking curfew or any other directives given by the chief of police or the EOC, which means the prime minister, so that there's a national ordinance and rules. And it does happen. You find children on the road, the parents don't know about it, or the parents do know about it, or you find children on the road with parents. That happens as well. Yeah. Normally the process is you will get charged, there will be a long process of investigation, you probably first come on a pile, several months later you will get a call to come by the prosecutor either for a hearing or you will go to a court. We do not have time for that during a hurricane or any disaster. So what we do is you will get charged and basically no longer than 48 afterwards you will have a result of that charge, and 24 hours after that we will execute that charge. Meaning that in the case of minors, they will be charged, they will be processed, and no more than 72 hours later, as you can see later on, we'll probably have a lot of damages and a lot of stuff to do, and they will be doing it. Yes, they can do their community service one time. So the process of the justice just goes a lot quicker. The process of the judicial process just goes a lot quicker. Not necessarily because we can use the extra hands, but also because there's no normal office operating at that time. So in order to not get a backlog of things that happened during the disaster and to try to keep track of that, we just, through swift justice, you can actually, within the situation where they caused more problems, you can put them to work to solve some problems. So the main message for me is that If you're a social worker, if you're a parent here, if you're both, if you speak to people, if you're part of social services, advise all parents, speak to your children, have a sit-down conversation with them, talk about from before, during, and after what you expect of them. But also tell them about what the responsibilities are that you have for their behavior. The Christmases that are coming, the food that needs to come on the table, it will all end when you have a big bill. And you got to start, you can never start too young by making your children financially responsible. And this is an important aspect.
Your social and health insurance is your social and health insurance.
Are you SXV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXV is cardless. Request your My SXV account today and enter the virtual office of SXV. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
Your social and health insurances.
24/7 TV programming on www.stmartinmediacenter.com, SXM Daily News, PBS NewsHour, Now You Know, com programs, documentary, entertainment, sports events, Saturday children's hours, religion programs, and movies. Click on SXM TV broadcast to see your favorite programs.
The Barbados Ocean and Coastal Authority will be established by an Act of Parliament within the coming days. The announcement is coming from Prime Minister the Honourable Mia Amor-Motley. She says the draft bill has been completed and is now being presented to Cabinet. Prime Minister Motley was addressing the Global Biodiversity Alliance Summit 2025 in Guyana, where she said the highly anticipated authority will elevate the work to be done to elevate coastal areas.
One, from the erosion of sargassum, which is deadly on our eastern coast, but two, also from the natural erosion that is taking place as a result of agricultural runoff and other factors, and which, quite frankly, threaten what is our greatest concern, the stability of our water supply. Because if our aquifers are in fact polluted by salt water, then we will no longer be able to use those aquifers for the provision of drinking water for our people. So that coastal erosion has multiple negative consequences if we do not get on top of it.
PM Motley adds the Barbados Marine Sustainability Trust will also seek to ensure 30% of the island's marine area, roughly 55,000 square kilometers, becomes protected space.
I say so because Barbados' land area is about 430 square kilometers. So that you begin to understand scale when we are protecting just 30%, and that 30% is the equivalent of 55,000 square kilometers. I am not the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but I believe my brother Ralph will allow me to say that his country too will benefit similarly, because while they too have limited land area, they are a massive ocean state just as we are. So these conversations, Mr. President, are not academic, they are real.
And PM Motley says, in addition to the work of the Barbados Wetlands Trust at the Graham Hall Nature Sanctuary, efforts are ongoing to preserve the remaining wetland space, much of which have been destroyed.